Awesome. So we're going to get started. Some of you may be familiar with Daily Acts, but we did want to start with a brief overview of who we are and welcome you to the Leadership Institute for Just and Resilient Communities, formerly known as the Leadership Institute for Ecology and the Economy information session. So to give you a brief overview of who Daily Acts is, our mission is to take a heart-centered approach towards inspiring transformative actions that create connected, equitable, and climate-resilient communities. We believe in the power of our daily action to heal our society and planet. Our holistic approach starts in the soil and swells into culture and policy change. Through over 100 talks, tours, and trainings a year, we implement 3 interwoven strategies for systems change. Our first is to spread solutions and models for growing food, medicine, habitat, and community. This provides and equips people with the means and motivation to change their neighborhood and their backyard through the area around them in their own front yard. Because we believe change happens through mindful collaboration, we also invest in strengthening community leadership, which we will be diving into a lot more on this program. And this is kind of how it fits into the whole Daily Acts theory of change. This includes the Leadership Institute as well as our Youth Climate Leaders program and the Environmental Health Network. These efforts consolidate into a third strategy of building public and political will by mobilizing our community's power towards environmental and social justice policies. This is also interwoven into our Leadership Institute framework around civic engagement. So over the last 18 years, we've helped mobilize over 80,000 resilience building actions, run over 1,400 programs, and installed dozens of demonstration gardens. The impact of the Leadership Institute, which has been around for 20 years, it started in 2000, the first class graduated in 2001, has now over 500 fellows across business, government, and nonprofit sectors. And if you're interested in seeing a little bit of our network, I encourage you to check out our website and click the Our Network. You can get a sense of who over the last 20 years has gone through this program. So our agenda tonight and our goal for the evening is to share with you a deeper dive into the Leadership Institute for Just and Resilient Communities, which is in its 3rd year under the stewardship of Daily Acts. Tonight's agenda is going to start with an introduction to the course framework and our guiding principles. We're going to walk through a day in the life of what you could expect from our class. And Liz is going to share a testimonial of her experience going through the program last year. And then while Q&A is technically at the end, definitely encourage you to put your comments or questions in the chat box as we go. So it's fresh when we have that session at the end. Any questions before we get started? All right, our goal is to keep this as interactive as possible. So we'll have a few opportunities for interaction throughout as well. So starting with the framework and our inspiration for this program, the course is, the framework is actually a compilation of many, many years of training, both with staff and study of different leadership strategists. Our approach is inspired by lots of different leaders, but these trainings and strategists listed here in particular are the foundation of the tools, tips, and skills building that we've integrated into this program. Rockwood Leadership is actually a nationwide leadership course, and our executive director has gone through that, Trayton Heckman, and brings tools and trainings into that. And the Leadership for Equity and Opportunity is similarly a 9-day leadership training course, and we've integrated a lot of trainings and tools from that. One of our facilitators, 2 of our facilitators have actually also gone through the Center for Mind-Body Medicine training, which you might be familiar with. They've trained a number of leaders in Sonoma County, and we take that training and integrate it into this larger framework of personal leadership civic engagement, and collective power. Definitely encourage you to check them out. Emergent Strategy and Theory, your fabulous books, leadership training books as well. So we're going to go through a sense of each of these leadership pillars. And we want to start by first recognizing that we feel it's important for you to get to know our personal and programmatic values and design principles so that you can get a good, clear sense on who we are and how we show up. To do this, I'm actually going to share a personal example of my personal leadership compass and in how I introduce myself tonight. And these are skills and tools we actually practice in the program itself. So I introduced myself briefly at the beginning, but for those of you who also just joined, my name is Carrie Fugit. I am the Leadership Institute Program Manager and a Fellow of the Institute class of 2017, which was the last year as the Leadership Institute for Ecology and Economy before it was transitioned to Daily Acts the following year. To fully introduce myself, I am a white, millennial, female identifying, cisgender, middle-class Petaluma resident raised in Sebastopol. And for me, this program has given me space and community with whom to reflect on how these many identities impact my life experiences, my relationships, and how I use my privilege to model and create a just and resilient future through my daily actions. My core values are respect, compassion, and dignity for myself and all others. I stand on the shoulders of my Irish, Scottish, and German ancestors and passionately believe in the power each of us holds to create a world that regenerates people and planet. The operating principles and values we hold in designing this program are equity, courage, humility, and consent. And this is just a little snapshot of the inner compass that we start our program with around the leadership from the inside out model. And this is because we really deeply believe and see in successful leaders around the world that how we act as leaders is just as important as what we do, and that having this clear sense of purpose and where we come from gives us the courage to move into those other realms of civic engagement and building collective power through collaboration. But before we get into our next pillars, we wanted to actually do a little bit of interaction and some skills sharing around the Leadership Institute so you can experience a little bit of what it's like. Fundamental to our approach is integrating mind-body medicine practices that build self-care and resilience into how we show up as leaders. So we're going to take a moment to practice what that looks like. And if you've done a daily activity before, you know we're very fond of breathing together. So we're going to take a moment to pause. And if you're in a safe space to close or lower your eyes, I invite you to put your feet squarely on the ground. And we're going to take a moment to deepen into our breath and our body and do a tool called soft belly breathing, where we bring our attention to our breath and our belly and feel the breaths moving in and out. And I invite you to bring your attention to someone or something you're grateful for. And as we pay attention to our breath and who we're grateful for, also want to invite you to think about what drew you here today and what draws you to the Leadership Institute. And what are some of your intentions for growing yourself as a leader? And one of our favorite sayings at Daily Acts is to conspire actually means to breathe together. So in coming together in circle and breathing together, we're conspiring towards a brighter future. And with one more big deep breath in, feeling that air fill our lungs, we're gonna take a deep breath out and invite you to shake it out, rub your hands together, bring your awareness back into this moment in your body. And I wanted to invite anyone to share either by unmuting yourself or in the chat, but preferably unmuting yourself. It's nice to have a conversation. What brings you here tonight, and what are some of your intentions for growing yourself as a so that is a sample of our leadership pillar, the first one, the personal leadership. Our second pillar is civic engagement. And this is a sample here of some of our speakers, talks, and tours. And we're going to look at these next two pillars through kind of a day in the life of the leadership class. So there are 9 classes throughout the year. We start in September, and our last class is in May, with graduation in June. We are currently holding classes via Zoom, which has been different, but actually has gone incredibly well. We held our last class, our April class, entirely via Zoom, and still did all our mindfulness, personal leadership practices. We did a virtual tour of an urban garden and homestead, permaculture-based local resilience. And we had our talks and tours and small group discussion and big group discussion, peer sharing. So we find ways to make it work. But in an ideal scenario, we actually do tour all over the county, all across Sonoma County. You don't have to be a Sonoma County resident to be in the class. This last class, we had folks from Napa, Oakland, San Francisco, Marin, as well as Sonoma County, but all of our classes are held in Sonoma County. And it is a little bit easier from a transportation for leadership projects if you're able to get to Sonoma County regularly. Here you can see in the lens of civic engagement, speakers from a wide variety of different venues. So each venue holding the class is aligned with the theme of the day. We've got food systems, water supplies, affordable housing, health, education, climate change as different day topics. Here we've got the Water Treatment Center tour. We went to La Luz, Occidental Arts and Ecology Center, Pepperwood Preserve, La Plaza, and photos that are not here, but we also go to Hannah Institute, Singing Frogs Farm, Burbank Housing, Sonoma County Office of Education, and more. So each venue offers a tour of the related topic, and then speakers come in and we either do speakers or panels or workshops with different speakers. And these speakers share insights into the history of our county, current issues, and opportunities to be civically engaged. And as we step out from that centered self and our clear compass of purpose, we step into that realm of protecting and promoting publicly shared values. So we work on that balance of how do we model and be the best person we can be, but not so much that we're never in action, and finding that balance of personal development, but not waiting for perfection to act, embracing the messiness, embracing the discomfort and when you mess up, to still be in action, but doing it from a more self-aware and centered way. We kind of joke that this is an appetizer platter of how we look at how different issues show up locally, because you get kind of snippets of different topics each class day, and then we hold space in the afternoon to digest how it all kind of fits together, which flows into our third pillar of collective power. So this is also very much inspired by a lot of the leadership thought leaders that we referred to at the beginning, our inspiration for the curriculum design, and recognizing that we can't do all of this ourselves and we need to better work together in collaboration and partnership across difference. And that means understanding ourselves and deeply listening to others and checking our assumptions and building that self-awareness. So this is where our afternoon comes in after the morning of speakers. We connect with the peers in our group. Everybody in the class is inspirational in their own way. So getting chances to deepen into relationship with each other is so much fun. We get to talk about the readings and homeworks. There are a number of readings in advance of every class day that help give a foundational understanding of the systems and the dynamics and the histories of where we got to where we are for any related topic. This is also where we practice more of the leadership skills and have project time. And we believe that through collaboration and working together, we can build the collective power to shift the systems that are no longer working for the majority of people. In this pillar, we do work around deep thinking, systems thinking, deep listening, systems thinking, habit hacking, cycles of reflection, and conversations for action. And we try and build skills around seeing, helping ourselves see the system as the whole and the interrelationships between the parts. We do a lot of work around different size groups, small group discussion, personal reflections, and we definitely do some drawing as well. You can see some crayons in the corner. So we embrace art and creativity as ways to tap into some of our unconscious knowledge of self. And we believe, as Margaret Wheatley says, that change happens in relationship, and that this work really is about relationships, and that the depth of relationship between individuals in a system determines the strength of that system. So it can be really hard to visualize sometimes, but we really believe that this program is essential in helping strengthen the social infrastructure and the relationships in our county of people doing really important values-aligned work that might manifest in different ways, but that ultimately are moving towards the same vision of just, equitable, and climate-resilient future. And this afternoon space gives us time to get to know each other, support each other, build that skill set toolkit, reflect on what's working and where we could use some more support from each other. And in that project time, we often get a lot of questions about what the project is. There's a lot of socialization often to expect something like a project to have outcome-based parameters and a very clear definition of where it needs to go. But if you saw, one of our major inspirations is Emergence Strategy with Adrienne Marie Brown, and the guidance she provides around embracing the complexity and the unknown, and just building relationships to be able to steward in an emerging future. And so this is where our project really focuses on a theme that we repeated at the beginning of this talk, but how we show up, how we do what we do. So it focuses on more of a process than a goal. We really take into heart guidance from Ibram X. Kendi about how to be an anti-racist, and knowing that equity is a process and a goal. And so our approach is to focus on that process, because we might not know where we're needing to go, but we know the values and principles that we want to manifest and model and how we get there. And that this process is really important to help us collectively move towards that just and resilient future. And having awareness of how we're showing up, how we're doing our work, whose voices are being heard, is really critical for that. So that's a little sneak peek at our project. I can answer more questions to an extent, though it is emergent. And as a very quick, one small snippet of an example project from last year, this is actually Liz's project group, but Their project team was growing resilient neighborhoods, and we had folks from Conservation Corps, North Bay, Coffee Strong, and a number of other groups in the class who also reached out to other organizations like Habitat for Humanity, and we partnered to give away over 1,000 drought-tolerant plants to folks rebuilding from the Tubbs Fire. There was a lot more behind that than just that giveaway. That giveaway was amazing, but there's more depth than that, but just giving an example of what inspired collaboration can look like when you're just getting to know the right people at the right time and coming together. So the program ends in, the class ends in June for our project presentations and graduation, and the entire Fellows Network is invited to come and celebrate the graduation of each class. Like I said, we have had 19 classes graduate as of this June. And we all come together and celebrate. We also have holiday parties to get the fellows together for seasonal festivities. And we're always chewing on ways to continue to support the network beyond the seasonal gatherings, because if you've taken a look at the website, there are some very inspiring folks in the Leadership Fellows Network. So with that, I wanted to hand it off to Liz to offer a testimonial to share her experience in the class, and then we'll open it up for Q&A.
Thanks, Carrie. It's been really fun to listen to this presentation, and I'm taking the time to reflect on what each day looked like and what those 6 to 8 months incorporated. And some of my favorite pieces of being part of the Leadership Institute was definitely the ability to grow my confidence, to learn what it meant to me to be a leader, to figure out what do I value and what are my guiding morals and ethics that I want to take me into this world. How do I want to show up in every arena that I show up in? And I would say the community that you gain from this class has been one of the many things that I cherish most of all, I would have to say. And some of the questions that you all asked, from how do I gain more confidence as a leader? How do I be a leader? How do I balance leadership and work with self-care? This class encompasses all of that. And what resonated most with me during this conversation, Carrie reminded me, it's about the process. It's not always about the outcome. And so I really wish that I actually came here tonight with my packet of notes and like the mission statement that I put together in one of the very first classes, because it all still stands true. And I really use some of those things that I value, such as compassion, authenticity, humility, vulnerability, respect. I feel like I carry that in myself and how I show up every single day. And I'm realizing that being a leader, you're a leader in every aspect of your life. And things that I took away from this class, I don't think I ever would have acknowledged were so valuable. And so I definitely want to reiterate, the community part of all of this gives me the confidence as a leader. I know that I can call on anybody who I was in the class with, and they will support me in something that I need, or I have the ability to support them. Carrie spoke a little bit about the project aspects of things. That was a huge joy to be able to partner with about 5 other people, maybe even 4 other people, to develop a process to get to something. And I feel fortunate enough that our project actually came to fruition, and we were able to install landscapes and help people who are rebuilding from the fires. We helped them to get a landscape installed. But it was funny, coming back to community, another group did a project focus on pollinators and providing habitat for monarch butterflies. And so they had all of these resources and started a ton of milkweeds from seeds. And ironically enough, I was on Nextdoor over this past weekend, and Julie, who was in our class last year, had posted that she had all of these starts on Nextdoor. And so I scurried over there, gloves and mask, of course, and I got to connect with Julie, and she was giving away all of these starts that she had grown from the class. And so what people are doing throughout this class, it still continues. Everything that you're learning and what you're working towards in this class does not end after graduation. I'm constantly amazed how we're all still civically engaged with one another, and the collective power is so real. I have so much more confidence as a leader, so much hope in our community and environment, and I have so much more curiosity. I'm choosing to lean into areas of my life and my work that I don't think I would have otherwise, because I really did leave this class with a lot more confidence overall. Confidence is something that I keep coming back to because I feel like I've just learned so much, and I would be happy to condense down to a more a more cohesive thought process with all of this next time. But any questions that you all have, I know Carrie and I are both here to answer any and all of those. So I'm going to pass it back to her for some Q&A.
Thanks so much, Liz. The milkweed has actually rippled out into Napa County too, to continue that story, because Jules, as part of the project, went and did a training for a youth group in Napa, and they ran with it, got a grant, and now had just planted 600 more milkweed in Napa after that, because the Environmental Youth Council, this high school youth group there, got really stoked on planting milkweeds for monarchs. So the ripple effect definitely continues to ripple. If anybody has heard about the Southeast Greenway project in Santa Rosa, that actually originated from a Leadership Institute project nearly 10 years ago, and it is still going, but they are going to get that across the finish line. So it's pretty amazing. So with that, we wanted to have plenty of time for questions and answers, and also just discussion, ideas popping up, thoughts, curiosities. So if you've got any, invite you to answer, ask away. Unless we covered everything.
Hi, this is Irma.
Go ahead.
Okay, hi. I have a question regarding, so if you were to get sponsored by your employer to get involved in this leadership program, is there a way, from what I hear, it's very individualistic, it's very much about civic engagement, and the project is really a process, not an end product. Could we somehow make it somewhat of an end product for your employer? I feel that right now we're really in the midst of pushing equity and inclusion in the outdoors, and I feel like this would be a great opportunity to bring in some of the skill sets and the civic engagement to perpetuate that vision and mission that we have for equity and inclusion. And I just was wondering if we could somehow design something that does, promote that for our employer.
Absolutely. That's a great question. We do get a number of folks who have a very particular project area that they want to follow because of their employer. And so this will be an extended answer, but it's because it's a really, really good question. Is we get folks to the program who some have a very clear goal that they need to work on because their employer is sending them, and some are very much just I want to plug in and I don't know where, but I have so much energy and passion, and I want to know where I'm most needed to focus that. So the process and the outcome part of the project, if you are moving through the process towards the outcome, then that is totally great. So what we did for the project is to relieve the pressure of having to have an outcome. We focused on the process because that's really important. But if folks are able to move through that and get to an outcome, then that's totally celebrated and it's awesome. But we recognized from some of last year's leadership groups that had to pivot halfway through because of situations outside of their circumstances, from housing to zero waste. We wanted to make sure that process was given the time it needed and didn't suffer from kind of this external outcome-oriented approach. But ideally, you can move through the process and get into that outcome, because the outcome is ultimately we need to see change on the ground for sure. We just don't want it to skip through how we get there. So what this year has looked like is a number of groups have kind of oriented around different topics, sustainable agriculture and pesticides, affordable housing, and one group has decided that they've got more folks who have very independent projects that they need their employer to focus on for their employer. So they have formed a group around process, and they're each doing their own manifestation of that in their community. A lot of listening to the community and in their respective organizations. So around housing, or we've got Sonoma Land Trust and Latino or interaction with the outdoors, kind of what you're talking about, Irma, as well. So they've gotten together around that because they have more direct direction that they need to take. So we flex to that, but we still try and form groups or teams because we want it to be collaborative and collective and not an individual experience, because getting to work in that group team is really a great way to deepen into relationship. So we try and form teams around existing themes that people feel really passionate about. So there might be people in your class that feel very passionate about what you're proposing and wanting to work on, and there will actually be a team that will form around that to help support the project that you want to bring to life. And I think that's actually kind of what happened with Liz's team is Pam lost her house in Coffee Park, and so it was very clear that her project needed to be around the rebuild, and that was non-negotiable. But what exactly that looked like could be co-created with the team. And so the team kind of oriented around that. They were equally passionate and excited to help the rebuild. And so it formed around there so that her idea got to be completed as a group and in collaboration. But she had something very strongly that she felt about moving towards at the beginning. So the team formation happens usually in class 2, and there can be there's often shifting around as people kind of settle into what thematic areas they're interested in working in, and some are able to kind of do that process and move more quickly to an outcome, and some realize that they want to focus a bit more on the process and aren't ready to commit to an outcome, and so they do that. So we really try to be as flexible as possible for wherever anybody's at, and mostly just hold our design principles of, are you doing it in an equitable way, and are you doing outreach to folks on the ground, are you deeply listening, are you checking your assumptions, are you just not jumping into action thinking you know best but you haven't ever actually talked to the people most impacted. So that part of the process is really important. And then if that's feeling really values aligned and great, and you can move into outcomes, that's ideal, because we definitely need technical solutions visible on the ground for a lot of these huge issues. That was a very long answer. But it's a big question, and it evolves every part of the year. Does that help, or do you have any additional questions, Irma, around that?
No, thank you. That was super thorough. I appreciate it.
Okay, awesome. I see you, PJ. I'm going to read that to the group. I'm first going to share something that has evolved for the class this year because of having to move to a fully remote space. We had to adapt, but this might help also give a sense of how the framework manifests. This is the theory U that I referred to at the beginning, our inspiration of how do some of these mind-body medicine practices plug into this larger taking action space. And so this is a reflection of that theory U, and to what I was talking to before about the process and moving into an outcome. The U is a really great way of looking at that, so that we're not just jumping to a solution, but we're pausing and sensing in, and then creating from that. And so the class is really designed around that sensing in space rather than just the jump across. So if that you frame is really fundamental to how we hold that project. So I wanted to provide that visual to of where that comes from, and how the rest of these pieces and the pillars fit into the sensing in and then the co-creating a new future. I'm getting a question of, does the course teach us how to move from the home and neighborhood level to the larger political and economic world? I think big structural changes are needed, but I don't know exactly how to move in that direction. We definitely do that, and that's where that civic engagement lens comes in, and what I was talking to about that edge of like not getting so stuck in the personal self-care space that we're not being in action, because we need tangible solutions and new systems on the ground yesterday. But we also believe deeply that the political change we need, we want to focus on our circle of influence and grassroots power for larger systems change. So we talk about local political action. We bring in supervisors and city council members. This year, both of whom are fellows of the Institute, Supervisor Gorin and Councilmember Chris Rogers, to talk about engaging in local politics and for larger political change. But we do really focus on the local level, because getting policies in place locally then create models for rippling out to larger scale. But from all the political strategists that I work with, and I've been a community organizer in Sonoma County for the last 3 to 4 years now, working in policy in particular, getting these policies, a few model policies passed at the local level is an essential step for anything to move to the state level, because it needs to be moved forward first locally. So that's kind of how we approach the political space. And moving into the economic space, we do an activity with movement generation called Eco Equals Home. And economy, we explore economy as what the foundational element of the word means, of management of home, and that we actually are all economists. We all manage our own home, and outsourcing kind of the economic system disempowers us. So we talk about how we can manage our own home and our own local economy that will ripple out to the larger impact and larger structure. But again, really focusing on our circle of influence, because if we focus on our circle of concern where we don't have as much power, then we can just burn ourselves out. So we really focus on where do we have power and how do we use it. Awesome, thank you. Any other questions?
Something. How many people are typically in a cohort per year? And you said we all meet together once a month. Do you guys do like smaller breakout groups within that one day?
Yeah, great question. So we have between 20 to 25 folks in each cohort, and we do lots of different group breakout sizes. So we'll do space for individual reflection and pair shares, and then small group and large group. We are very, very, very intentional with how we hold space so that folks who feel more comfortable sharing in smaller groups get that space. Folks who are more comfortable in larger space, they can share to the whole group and be seen by the whole community. And we do acknowledge, it's easier for some people to think on the fly and harder in large group situations. So we we're transparent in how we facilitate space, so that we can all collectively build skills for holding space together, so that all voices can be heard, and bringing awareness to different power dynamics in the room and how we show up, and kind of that whole lean in and lean out element of holding space, so that while we have the small group reflections, we also want to help support people in using their voice and speaking to the whole group, so that they can then take that confidence to City Hall and their 3 minutes of public speaking, and then maybe run for office. So holding that space to build that confidence, and then offering opportunities to apply it. Great question. Any other questions?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm sure that a lot of people who do this program are very busy outside of it already and involved in a lot of things, but do you have like a sort of like rough estimate of how many hours a week kind of goes into the class, and outside of the kind of once a month meetings, you know, what else are we kind of doing throughout the week that also requires our time?
Yeah, great question. So the class is once a month, so for a full day, and then ideally you're meeting with your team project group once a month as well. So that can be a couple hours, which is hopefully aligned with something you're already working on and passionate about, so helping support that ultimate goal. And then in addition to that, we offer readings and resources and some homework around reflections throughout the month. So that can be as little or as long as you want. If you do all the readings, it'd be a couple of hours. It's not like a huge amount of readings. But so that's about it. It's the project teamwork and the readings outside of class. So 5 hours or so. Yeah. Any other questions? I'm going dark here. I didn't realize I didn't have my, I'm gonna let the introverts, like such as myself, ponder if there's any more questions, and turn on the light behind me. The home office. Oh, there we go. It's a little bright. Well, work from home and changing light. Think about that for next time. Any last questions? Otherwise, we'll wrap it up as we near 8 o'clock. We covered everything. One last thing we haven't covered, feel free to ping a question if it just comes up right now, but we have extended the application deadline to June 15th instead of June 1st, just with all the things going on in our world and the global pandemic, giving people a little bit more time to apply. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me anytime with anything that comes up. And there is an early bird application deadline of May 10th for a 10% discount off the tuition. It is a sliding scale tuition, and we want to we do our best to make it accessible for anybody who wants to join. Most of the time, folks sent by their organizations are sponsored by their organizations. So if you would like any ideas or want to discuss how to discuss that with your organization and employer, anything I can offer support-wise around that, I'm happy to do so. So we try and make it as accessible as possible because we just want to empower passionate folks to make epic change in this world. because we deeply believe it's needed now. So with that, we'll wrap up. It's just about 8 o'clock, but I really appreciate everybody sharing your thoughts and time and inspiration with us. I know that you're all probably already inspirational leaders in your community, and so really excited to hopefully connect with you, connect you in with this larger Leadership Institute network and community. And again, feel free to reach out with any questions. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Carrie.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Carrie.
Thank you. Do you stop the recording now?